Humans don't understand logistical restraint unfolds across a universe where humanity's arrival in the galactic community marks a seismic shift in the way civilizations approach interstellar expansion and survival. The galaxy is home to species who have honed the art of spacefaring through centuries of methodical, cautious practices. For them, every journey, every outpost, and every trade route is governed by exacting logistical standards. Then, unexpectedly, humanity bursts onto the scene with a style so unique, so audacious, that it disrupts the very fabric of galactic order. Humanity's first steps beyond Earth were anything but careful. Driven by a long history of ambition, desperation, and a knack for pushing the boundaries of possibility, humans approached space with an intensity few had seen before. Where other species carefully calculated every move to ensure sustainable expansion, humans seemed to launch colonies and expeditions with reckless abandon, leaning on a mentality that viewed logistical challenges not as obstacles, but as puzzles to be solved on the fly. The galaxy's established civilizations, particularly the Alari, known as the undisputed masters of logistics, initially regarded humanity with a mix of horror, disbelief, and, gradually, an awed admiration. The Alari had spent centuries building an empire of meticulously organized outposts, trade hubs, and research stations, all based on carefully regulated resource flows. For the Alari, logistics was not just an operational necessity but a philosophy, a way of life. They believed that survival depended on adherence to strict logistical principles, avoiding any risks that might destabilize their carefully balanced systems. So when humanity's ships began to appear in Alari-controlled space, often overloaded, patched together from mismatched parts, and lacking the redundancies the Alari held sacred, they were appalled. The first major incident involved a human ship, the Pioneer's Hope, venturing into a restricted Alari sector. The vessel was a haphazard construct of various ship classes, held together by ingenious but seemingly precarious modifications. When the Alari hailed the ship and demanded to know how it had ventured so far without proper clearance or preparation, its captain, Julia Reyes, responded with a single, bemused phrase: "If it fits, it ships." To the Alari, this motto seemed to capture the humans' chaotic spirit, and though they found it absurd, they couldn't ignore the results. Despite every logistical mistake the Alari saw, humanity continued to achieve feats that defied expectations. Colonies popped up in regions previously considered too harsh, ships pushed to the brink seemed to survive against all odds, and human crews thrived in circumstances that would cripple other species. Faced with this unexpected resilience, the Alari convened a council to determine whether humanity represented a threat to the galaxy's logistical stability. Initially, they considered sanctions, restrictions, and blockades to limit human expansion, believing that humanity's disregard for caution was bound to lead to disaster. Yet the Alari's rigid methods failed to account for a trait they'd rarely encountered: adaptability. Stories began to spread across the galaxy about human settlers stranded on hostile worlds, only to transform these barren landscapes into thriving outposts. One particularly famous account described a human colony on the remote ice planet of Tulix, which lost its supply line during a freak cosmic event. The Alari assumed the settlers were doomed, but when a rescue team arrived months later, they found the humans had survived by repurposing their equipment, melting ice to cultivate algae, and even creating a rudimentary power grid from scavenged parts. This ingenuity began to change the Alari's perspective. Over time, they reached out to humanity, initially under the guise of offering guidance, but eventually to understand the human approach better. Alari and human teams started working side by side, each teaching the other. Alari experts shared advanced resource tracking algorithms, planning methodologies, and efficient energy systems. In exchange, human crews introduced the Alari to a new concept of operational flexibility, showing them how to solve problems in real time without perfect information or resources. The Alari, who had never considered such adaptability a necessary skill, were shocked by the humans' ability to not only survive but thrive in unpredictable environments. Soon, Alari vessels adopted emergency protocols based on human practices, allowing them to better respond to crises. Humanity's influence didn't stop with the Alari. Their distinct approach to logistics caught the attention of other species. The Jacquerie, known for their finely tuned economic networks, initially looked down on humanity's improvised systems, viewing them as impractical and unsustainable. However, as human traders began making inroads into sectors others had deemed unprofitable, the Jacquerie started to reconsider. They observed how human traders could adapt rapidly to changing markets, bartering with goods they didn't yet have and establishing supply lines in volatile regions. The Jacquerie, who had prided themselves on their ability to manage complex economies, realized that human adaptability offered a way to reach new markets. Similarly, the KTUL, a reclusive species of scientists who had long limited their outposts to safe, stable sectors, began hiring human crews to help them establish research stations in more perilous regions. For centuries, the KTUL had focused their studies on phenomena close to their established systems, avoiding areas with high gravitational disturbances, asteroid clusters, or radiation zones. But with humans' help, they were able to push into these high-risk areas. Human engineers outfitted KTUL research vessels with modified shields, rerouted power systems, and created custom equipment to withstand the extreme environments the KTUL had previously avoided. By studying alongside humans, the KTUL learned that risk, managed wisely, could unlock discoveries beyond the limits of cautious research. Over time, humanity's approach became something of a legend in the galactic community, a symbol of bold expansion and resilience. Their reputation as the species that didn't understand logistical restraint became a point of pride, a sign of their relentless drive to reach further, survive harsher conditions, and embrace the unknown. Yet not everyone welcomed this change. Within the Alari leadership, a faction known as the Conservators voiced increasing concerns that humanity's influence threatened the stability of galactic logistics. They argued that humanity's disregard for caution could lead to resource shortages, economic instability, and even interstellar conflict. Tensions mounted, and soon the Alari Conservators proposed drastic sanctions against human expansion. This period, known as the Great Logistical Rift, tested the alliances humanity had built across the galaxy. For months, it seemed as if humanity might face severe restrictions on their colonization efforts. However, an agreement was reached through delicate negotiations, culminating in the historic Kalari Accord. Under the accord, human colonies were permitted to operate as long as they could demonstrate basic adherence to sustainable practices, while also allowing for the flexibility that had become humanity's hallmark. It marked a pivotal moment, solidifying humanity's place in the galactic community and allowing their unconventional methods to coexist with more traditional practices. The Kalari Accord paved the way for a new era of interstellar cooperation, one that valued adaptability and resilience alongside caution and planning. Humanity's integration into the galaxy was no longer viewed as a threat but as an asset, a means of expanding into regions previously deemed too risky. Through the Accord, humanity became both a symbol of progress and a cautionary tale, respected for their achievements but also reminded of the potential dangers their methods entailed. In time, humanity's influence transformed the galaxy itself. Their colonies thrived, their trade routes grew, and their explorers continued to push the boundaries of what was thought possible. The Alari, once their staunchest critics, became their closest allies, adopting elements of human flexibility into their own rigid systems. The KTUL and the Jacquerie, too, benefited from humanity's example, opening new research stations and trade routes in sectors previously ignored. Humanity's legacy became woven into the fabric of galactic civilization, not as a species that conformed to the galaxy's established norms, but as one that challenged, reshaped, and expanded them. Humanity, the species that didn't understand logistical restraint, had transformed from a disruptive force into a catalyst for progress. They inspired other species to question old assumptions, embrace change, and view the cosmos not as a fixed order but as an ever-expanding frontier filled with limitless possibilities. And in the end, humanity's greatest achievement was not just their survival or their success but the profound impact they left on a galaxy forever changed by their audacity and resilience.